Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's forum on service providers. I'm Alex. We're going to do introductions in a little bit. So first of all, I'd like to start off with the acknowledgement of country, and I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners on the land of which we meet today, the Wanarua people, and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and community. We pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. So as for intros, like I said, I'm Alex. I'm currently in Hunter region, so I'm from Maitland area. I'm a representative advocate with the company. We also have Tony and Jade, if you guys like to say hello.
You go first, Jade.
Hello. Hi, my name's Jade, and I'm also a representative advocate here at Spinal Cord Injuries Australia, and I am from the Illawarra region, currently based in Wollongong, and I am on Darawal land.
And I'm Tony, everyone, and I'm on Gadigal land in Sydney. So, yeah, welcome everyone.
So today we're talking about service providers. I'm sure everyone has a lot of great input into this topic. I know me in my personal life, I definitely can attest to having some interesting experience, and we're looking for kind of all feedback to kind of guide our service and our advocacy.
More of a more recent phenomenon has been the signing of service agreements with disability service providers, and possibly that's true with aged care providers, I would imagine as well. But anyone got any feedback on service agreements and whether they work well or whether they don't or not, and getting changes made? Does that affect the work in having something written out in a service agreement and then holding these services to account? Raja?
Yes, well, we just going on from the first item, we use 5 different organizations, which I basically have a full-time job, like my job, my paid job, and this job of coordinating services. And some of these service agreements are, some of them are okay, but some of them we've just knocked one back. They want us to sign a service agreement and give them a cancellation a month before, or else we get charged.
A month? That seems
Yes.
steep.
Mind you, they don't give you any notice. They give you an hour notice when someone can't show up, or not even, but they want a month notice when we don't want someone to come, or else we get charged.
That's ridiculous, particularly for things like
I am
personal
not
care.
joking. And another one that said, they're all like commercial organizations, of course, for profit. And another one, and there seems to be a lot of these organizations that are owned by doctors and lawyers and accountants, because I always go into who owns what, so that, we try to avoid those big multinational organizations. One of them wanted to charge about about 30% more than NDIS rate, because they said they have wonderful staff. But one of the things is, like, the lovely thing about the NDIS is having the power and control to choose staff, and the lifestyle that you choose to live. Apparently the clients don't have any say in the staff selection. You get dished out whatever you like, whatever they like, and you just have to take it. So of course, no need to tell you that we gave them a really big serve in writing, and Mark, my husband, is quite good at that, and knocked them back. But there seems to be a lot of things creeping up that are becoming very controlling of the lifestyle we live, and what choices we have, which is totally against what the NDIS is all about.
Yep, good points. And what about, in signing service agreements, have you had any positive experience in making adjustments? So rather than it being a 1 month policy for cancellations, asking them to make adjustments to that service agreement so it's
No.
more reasonable.
No, they're usually not. Some of those as I said, these organisations we knock back, but that's some of the examples. No, we are, as I said, we use 4 different organisations and we negotiate. But as I said, it takes a lot of time and effort.
Yeah,
Tony,
sure.
as you know, like and luckily I've worked in human resources and stuff like that, which gives me a bit of an edge. But it is very time consuming and a lot of effort and a lot of coordination.
That's a common experience, Raja, for sure, and I can relate to that completely myself, because I have one service provider, I have 3 sole traders that I use, and as well as
we use sole traders too. We actually encourage good staff to become sole traders. That's the other good option that we're exercising.
Yeah, and even these online platforms, but as well. Anyone else got any comments on signing service agreements, good and bad? You want to just share, or?
Peter's got his hand up.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Peter.
That's all right. How's everyone today?
Good. How's yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. I got sidetracked. So anyway,
you were in the last forum, weren't you? And you raised this issue.
I was. Yeah. The lady, she made a lot of good points, because I've just signed a service agreement and I'm having fun at the moment. Like, the thing that I think everyone can relate to is you get a company and they say, oh, we've got good worker that's suited to the requirements and that, and then when the worker comes here, they're absolutely no good. And I have a bit of a joke with my ex-wife. I say, your four-year-old daughter's got more brains than some of the workers that come here.
Yeah. That I know. Kelly's raised this. You've raised this similar issue, haven't you, Kelly? Where they'll talk. Service providers will talk a good game prior to signing you up, and then when you do, the reality is often completely different.
I think they give you a good sales pitch, and then they get you in, and too late to get out.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Sorry, Peter, anything further to add just on that?
No, I'll just, give everyone a chance to speak, and yeah, we're here to share our experiences.
Yep. Who else has got their hand up? Secretary Catering, it says here.
Oh, sorry.
Who's that?
My name's Dawn. Sorry, I'm a secretary for the Rural Fire Service Catering Brigade, and it's the Teams account. I apologise.
Nice to meet you, Dawn.
Hello. First off, I am very grateful to have the NDIS support I've got. I'd be absolutely screwed without it. So, and what I've found with service agreements is I appreciate that they're really important to the plan managers who have to work out what they're supposed to pay and what they're not supposed to pay. But it also drives me crazy when I get a new plan with no notice and all of a sudden I've got to get all new service agreements. That being said, the best way I've found to manage things is I've got a mixture of service providers and sole traders. All invoices come to me and I forward them on and say this is approved for payment. It's the only way I can manage that rates and hours are accurate.
Yeah.
And I found the online portals absolutely useless. The number of people I've asked if they're available for work, and they said, "Oh no, sorry, I'm full time." But you look on their page, and they say they're available 7 days a week, 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
so I found the portals absolutely useless. I found that actually getting sole traders who are in my local area support each other, and kind of fill in the gaps. They know that if they can't do things, somebody else is going to be brought in, not like a threat, but like a network. They do support each other. But I also recognize that I'm lucky enough that I can advocate for myself.
Yep.
So I recognize that most of the comments being made are people who can, to a certain extent, advocate for themselves. And I also, this would be horrifying if my husband had to do it on my behalf, or, somebody was doing it for their loved one. And I'm sure there are people on this forum who are in that case as well.
Yeah.
It's a tricky thing. I used to have a catering business, and I used to have the same problem with staff. But I think one of the things that's so different about disability is everybody's disability capacity and requirements are quite different. So I get that we need to advocate on a general level, but I also recognize the complexities of, you're not making toasted sandwiches for everybody.
Yeah.
Everyone is so different. So I acknowledge that it's a tricky thing to get right, and it's an important thing to get right.
Yep. You made a good point around the service agreement and having to sign new ones every time you get a new plan. That's a really frustrating element.
Yeah, fortunate to get home modifications done, but every time that seemed to change, I got a new plan, and I needed new service agreements for everybody.
Yeah, I would imagine it's possible, and I think that you just have an ongoing service agreement where you shouldn't have to sign one each time you get a new plan. I don't know if that's possible or not.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think with plan managers, 100%, a lot of those service agreements just roll over, but that's the only service that I know of where those service agreements just continue to roll over. I think it does with your online platforms as well, like your higher ups and your Mabels.
Yes.
But with other providers, like for instance, Spinal Cord Injuries Australia, if you're using NeuroMove, I can imagine that even if your plan is exactly the same, or they've just added in something that's got nothing to do with NeuroMoves, because the dates have changed, you need to sign a new service agreement.
Yep.
It could be as simple as them they could literally just leave the dates on the plan exactly as they are, and it probably wouldn't even need to happen.
So, but I think
it
every
doesn't make
time
much sense. Yeah.
Every time your NDIS plan is reviewed, you need a new service agreement with the providers you have.
Okay. Marg's got a hand up. Marg, just take yourself off mute. Maybe while we're waiting for Marg, Jerry, you want to?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say about service providers and your agreements. Getting high AT will actually trigger, because I've had that issue recently with the C-brace. It actually triggers a review of your plan and a whole new date every time something changes, and it becomes a little bit chaotic. You sort of lose track, but you got to try and float with the boat. I think that'd be something that could be better, could be smoothed out a bit, because it does get a bit tricky, and some of the providers lose track of where you're at, and so sometimes it'll reject a payment because you haven't given them their date, but you haven't realised that your date's changed. Like, I'm on top of that now, because now I know to expect it, but I didn't before. So there was a couple of times where payments got rejected. And I've had them emailing me saying what's happened, and our payment's been not paid, and then you realise, oh, okay, it's a plan date. So I've had like half a dozen plan changes in the last 12 months, just because of high end AT. So
frustrating.
Yeah, it can be.
I know longer plans are slowly being introduced, which can improve that, I suppose. Having, a 3-year plan as opposed to a 1-year plan, as an example.
Yeah, I started off on the 1 year and then it went to 2 years. And then during that, I had applied for the sea brace and then it triggered all these other ones. So, yeah, you just got to keep up with it until something smoother comes along. But, yeah, I think that having a 3-year plan would be better.
Yep.
Yep.
Marg, we'll go back to you, Marg, if you want to take yourself off
sorry
mute.
about that. I forgot to unmute my mic.
You're right. You're right.
I'm one of the people who support my family. So I support my brother who's a paraplegic and do all of his support stuff and service agreements and everything. And it's basically a full-time job with all the different legal stuff and everything you've got to go across. I have had some luck with changing some service agreements. I've found people have been quite flexible in some instances, but again, that's not the big companies, smaller ones. But one of the disadvantages I've found is high intensity, and so that's what's in the service agreement. But with the lack of staff that are around at the moment, and what you were saying before about staff not necessarily having it as a full-time job, but moving on quite often, there's not always high intensity people around to be able to support him. So, but we still get charged high intensity because until we see the person, we don't get to see their qualifications. So that's sort of something that I don't know if there's any way around that. So till we meet them and sort of ask them what their qualifications are, but then we're stuck in the place that, well, if we don't accept them doing it until they can find someone who is trained and is willing to do the job, then he has to have somebody. So we have to use whoever's available at the time until somebody can come in. But yeah, I don't know how we get around that. But the service agreement says high intensity, so they still bill at that.
That's we've got anecdotal feedback of this affecting other people, definitely. The high intensity and then being charged for it, and then you're not entirely always sure and whether or not they've got the skills and the capacity to meet those requirements, but yet, as you say, you're being charged the extra funding for it. Yeah,
and I think the labour shortage, that's the critical thing. If it was normal circumstances with no labour shortage, it would be okay, but there's just not enough highly trained people around to fill all the needs, And
have you had any positive experience when you've gone back to the service provider and you've said to them, well, this person doesn't meet that high intensity level, therefore you should be adjusting the rates of pay that you're charging me? Have you had any experience?
No, not really. We've had the reasoning come back that we're doing our best I can, and they'll try and reshuffle some other people around, but then it means that someone else misses out, and they try and get somebody for us, but they'll just say at the moment, like, can we just stopgap it until we can get somebody in that we can use? So it's only when staff change over, and it's probably been 18 months now, but there's been quite a substantial change of staff. But I think it's like you said, a lot of them are students who are coming in and doing it for a year or 2 or 4 years whilst they do their course, and then they move on. So it's just seems to be an ongoing issue that I don't know how to resolve. And even if they stop charging us, that's still not solving the problem that I prefer he had the high intensity support that we're able to pay for. We just want to make sure he gets the support that he needs.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mark. Carmen, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a question. Is everyone here on NDIS, are they?
No, not everyone. It's
okay.
In the feedback that we got, some NDIS, some aged care. We had someone, I think, as well on Department of Veteran Affairs funding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think, I guess because I'm just amazed at what those that are on NDIS have to go through in order to get themselves the care that they need. I have to say, as much as we're self-funded simply because my husband's was a compensation case, but I mean, the money that we fork out isn't minimal, but at least we get a say into, you know, what carers my husband can have, and also whether they're suitable. And we don't get charged for that. You know, those buddy shifts that come along when we do get new carers. Yeah, so I don't know. I think I'm sitting here and I'm just in awe of you guys, and you know how you're, you know, you do things so wonderfully well. I don't know that I'd be able to do it.
Yeah.
Kudos to you all.
Thanks, Carmen. We'll go to Julio now, who's got their hand up. Julio?
Yes, Tony. My name's Julio. Yes, I agree with Carmen about the buddy shifts. I've had the same thing happening to me, but I only found out when I did ask him, do I get charged double when I get the buddy shifts? And yeah, they said to me that I do, but they don't tell you unless you ask that question.
Yeah, and they should be upfront with that, really.
They should be upfront, exactly right. I definitely agree with you, but they don't. All they're interested is, okay, oh yeah, we'll buddy one of them up with a new carer, but yeah, they charge you double. So
we don't.
When they were sending a carer, I said no, just send it one carer. I don't need to send another carer. Just one is enough. I'll put them through the steps that they have to do.
No, we don't get charged for that, Julio. We're told that it'll be a buddy shift, but we're also told that we don't. And I look at the invoices and make sure, and no, we don't get charged. And if Charlie needs a carer to come in for a third, usually it's just the 2 buddy shifts, but if he wants that new carer to come in for a 3rd or a 4th time, they will willingly do that, and we don't get charged for it. So
okay, that sounds better. Yeah, not with my
you need to look into it and make sure. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, Julio, you were chatting.
Yeah, no, sorry, I misunderstood Carmen, but yeah, like I said, I got charged once, and yeah, the following time I was all right. I said no, just send the one carer. I'll put it through the steps, the new carer. Yes, and it worked out all right.
I think the important thing is for service providers to be transparent and let everyone know, you know, what the charges are and when you're being charged, and it should be clearly written out in the invoices too.
Yeah.
Still, you know, that's in hindsight, of course. Kelly.
I think it's hard communication-wise with the providers about anything like care rosters, charges. I don't think they're like transparent with that, because I have 2 providers as well. One provider gives me a copy of the roster, a copy of the notes, what they're taking. And one provider doesn't give me the copy of the roster at all, so I didn't know what time they were charging. And that incident where so it was a 3-hour shift they were charging for, and I only needed a 2-hour shift, so I didn't know they were charging an extra hour. And every week I had to ask for that, you know, transparency. But it's really hard to get that in the first place without nagging, so to speak, and it's really stressful from my point of view. They've got high needs, so I don't want to be chasing people for rosters every day, and how much they're charging every day. I just want to see it every week, you know.
And have you taken it up with any of them or made official complaints? And if so, has that had any effect or?
Out of the year that I was with them, I got about 2 rosters sent to me and what times they were charging for. Yeah. I have to ask them for them multiple times through the owners, through the CEO, through the care coordinators. Didn't happen.
Yeah. Just on that whole issue around raising complaints, has anyone got any experience they want to share about, making an official complaint and whether or not that's had any positive response? Bob, you got your hand up? Bob, you want to have a chat? Just take yourself off mute. Can't hear you. Sorry, Bob, I'm struggling to hear you. Yeah. Seems to be a bit of interference on the noise, Bob. I don't seem to be able to hear you, unfortunately. Anyone else just on that issue? Raising a complaint, has it had any sort of positive outcome or, steps to take to try and address some of these issues? Raja?
Well, usually I check everything and I write notes and I have my own roster for both my husband and I, and with different providers, and I check everything. And yes, I do get back to them if there's been an overcharge. Yeah, but in Sydney, you got to pay for the buddy shift because everyone is casual. And once this woman said, okay, we won't charge you for the buddy shift, and I realised that she didn't pay the worker, which is not fair because they were here. But yeah, you take it up with whoever it is, and I've taken it up with CEOs and accountants and whoever it is, and sorted stuff out. Like sometimes it's a mistake, sometimes it's a non-transparent, but yeah, you just write your own notes and keep track of everything and just get back to them.
Yeah. Sandy had a hand up as well. If you wanted to say anything, or have your hand gone back down now?
I did have it down. I did have it pulled back down again. But I had a complaint, and when I put into the complaint, I had the same people answer me, and I got nowhere. Nothing was resolved at all.
Well, that shouldn't be the case. So when you do make an official complaint, it's supposed to be handled separately and not with the same people that you're making a complaint about. So yeah, that's disturbing.
Yeah, it wasn't very nice.
That's been my experience as well, Sandy. The same. Some do get resolved, some don't get resolved.
Yeah, more often than not, they don't. Yeah.
You could, I guess, make an official complaint with the NDIS Commission as an example to see whether or not that. And I realise that does require a bit of effort in making a complaint, but yeah, just as an alternative, as a to try and get some of these issues addressed.
That would be a complaint against the whole organisation, though, wouldn't it, Tony?
Yeah.
Yes. So normally, the normal step is you raise it with the service provider, but then if it's not a good outcome or they've handled it in a way which isn't appropriate, then you could make a complaint to the commission.
Yeah.
Jerry.
I was going to say we've had an issue with one of our sole traders, in that what do you do when you've made a complaint and they just completely ignore you, and you might want to stop that happening to other people, because like the only option we sort of had, we were being almost double billed for services, some services that we weren't even provided. Obviously, I raised that with my support coordinator and we sorted that out, got someone else. But
Yeah.
what do you do when, like, if they would possibly be doing that to other people who
Yeah.
don't have good self-advocacy like we have? So
Well, that's
what
what
happens
it
there?
relies on, unfortunately. I mean, just because they're a sole trader, they are still subject to the code of conduct, and so you can, even though they're not registered with the NDIS, you can. It is something you can still raise with the NDIS Commission, and you could forward their details. So they are definitely subject to those issues. So that would be a way of pursuing it.
That's good to know for next time. That's good, but it's certainly an eye opener.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Who's next? I've lost track. Peter.
Yeah, so I've gone through the process. I'm going through the process at the moment with a couple of, so pretty substantial complaints. And when I speak to the powers to be, I keep getting the same excuses, like the person's a really good worker and all that. And I keep saying that, well, they're a really good worker. Why do I feel the need to complain? So I've got to the point where I'm fed up. So I'm going above their heads and I'm going to powers to be to fire a rocket back at them.
You're under iCare, aren't you?
I am.
Yeah. And is that getting you where you need to go in terms of who did you make the complaint to iCare or to?
No.
With the service provider?
Yeah, that's correct. But this time round, I'm going to iCare. So I'm sitting there having a meeting with iCare service provider and a couple of my case manager and that to come to a resolution.
Yep.
Because it's just like enough's enough. I'm not one to sit on my hands and watch things fly.
And did they at least remove that worker?
Not as yet, no.
Well, they should be doing that as a matter of urgency. If you've got issues with workers, they shouldn't be sending them into your home.
Exactly right.
Don't forget, just one other avenue that people can take too is, if you're really struggling and you feel like you need some support, maybe go to a disability advocacy organisation to try and get some advocacy assistance, because often they've got some good experience and knowledge in this area, and they can sort of act on your behalf to try and pursue some of these matters. So it's just worth considering.
Yeah.
Kelly.
Yeah.
I guess the other problem is like they're short of staff. So if you're having trouble with someone, like for example, I had a support worker fall asleep on my night shift where they're supposed to be awake and they're asleep. I don't feel safe with that person anymore.
Yeah, of course.
I don't have a choice but to have them because there's no one else.
And I gather this was raised with them, and
absolutely.
And did they then alter their behaviour or anything like that, or was it? Did they swap the workers so that to ensure that wouldn't happen, or?
No, nothing was done. Yeah, because they said there was no one else to take the shift, so I had to put up with it.
Yeah. Okay. Marg, you got your hand up?
Yeah, hi. The other one just on the invoices. We've had luck with getting them corrected on different matters, but one of the things I find is that if I ask for the invoices to be sent to me so I can look at them, like a lot of people who are running their own things, not through organisations, are able to do, I've been told no, they have to go straight to the plan manager. They don't have room in their system to send them to me, and their system's only set up to send them to the plan manager. I've had that on multiple occasions, which means I don't get to see it. luckily Skia is our plan manager, so they go out of their way, and then once they get them, they'll send them back to me, and then I can look at them and say, yeah, go ahead, and then they send them back. But that's obviously an ad hoc, and it's not very efficient for Skia or for anybody.
I
so
find
I know
that
other people's experience. Has anyone
That's
else
amazing.
Has
Yeah.
anyone else been told that where it has to go to the plan manager, you can't see it before?
Oh my God.
that seems like a poor excuse to me.
Yeah, I've had that. I've had someone tell me no, we can't, so I just found someone else.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be transparent, surely it wouldn't matter by the service provider forwards the invoice to whoever needs to see it. And, you know, as the participant, it should be a priority for the service provider to do that, not to just sort of brush you off and say, well, we can only send it to the plan manager. I find that incredibly dubious.
Yes, I didn't find it very logical, but it seemed to be like it's happened more than once. So I don't know if it's just the way some of the computer systems are getting set up, or.
Yeah.
I think it's to do with them getting paid. I really do. I know that's terribly conspiracy theory, maybe, but I sort of feel
it means
that,
they're shonky. It means they're shonky. That's what it means.
Okay. Yeah.
Julia, you've still got your hand up. Was that from earlier, or you
Yeah, that was from earlier. That's just I've had an incident with one of my carers. She's a great carer, but she had the flu for about 2 weeks, and she was she was still providing a service. I had her like 2 or 3 times a week, but I didn't have the heart to tell my provider that not to send her, because that might be a bit of conflict there, so I thought I'd drop that one in.
It's a good point. It's a good point, because you sort of say to yourself, well, you've got a good working relationship with the support worker, and you're thinking to yourself, well, you don't want to put them off, but then you're worried about your health, of course, and the last thing you want is to, get the flu or COVID or whatever the case is, and so it leaves you in a sort of slightly conflicted as to what the right approach is.
You make sure she wears a big mask and have protective things. She doesn't pass on anything to you.
But I didn't, like I said again, I didn't have the heart to tell her.
Yeah, fair enough.
She's a lovely lady, and she's a local lady. I'm out in the western suburbs here, and so it's like that.
Yep.
Sorry, I was just going to say we've just had a comment in the chat saying that I need to approve all my invoices before they are paid by my plan manager through the app that their plan manager has. And I know that there are some plan managers out there. I know that I get a text message every time an invoice goes through to my plan manager. And they give me the opportunity to query it if I'm unhappy with the cost as well. So there are some good plan managers that keep on top of that. So great comment.
Yeah, good feedback. Okay, so just thinking about some of the other issues that are important. I know for a lot of traditional service providers, usually dealing with a service coordinator. You do get some really good service coordinators that seem to have a really good rapport with clients. Anyone got any comments about, good and bad service coordinators in dealing directly with traditional service providers? And, or possible tips about, improving communication, and because I know poor communication seems to be a really important issue where there might be a change in roster, someone doesn't get told, and then someone else rocks up, or you've asked for a change of time and that's not been communicated. So more frustrating elements, I'm sure. June, is it?
Dawn.
Dawn, sorry, Dawn. I keep looking at secretary catering. My fault. Sorry.
I will get that fixed. I just keep forgetting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gia are my support coordinators, Sophia, and I've got to say, I'm so grateful that somebody understands more about the NDIS than I do, and probably more about my disability than I do. But I also know she's only as good as the information I give her. So I've found it's better for me not to research anything before I touch base with her and just make sure I'm on the right page. I was offered whether I wanted to go self-manage, and I'm like, I don't know the NDIS well enough, and my experience is my requirements change or the NDIS changes, and there's no way I can keep on top of that. So I'm very grateful for the good support coordination I have.
Yeah. Okay. Let's.
The other thing is I had trouble with my plan managers, and she was great in helping work out exactly what the problem was and what type of organisation would address that for me.
Yeah. I know that's. I guess going from plan management to self-management. Yeah. I know it's different, and it's good to have plan managers to be able to do that for you as well. But yeah, it's. I guess there are a few resources on the NDIS around self-management. I've not really looked closely into them as to how helpful they are or not. But yeah.
Yes, please.
Just to be, I'm not self-managed. I am plan managed by Gia. Yeah, good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I get what you're saying.
Thank you.
Yep. Kelly?
I think that, transparency is a big issue. Like, the provider I have now, they give me the rosters and things, so I know who's coming in and who's not coming in. And they do call me to say someone's not coming in. I do enjoy the same persons or same people coming in that knows my routine, but I had providers previously where they just send random people in, and I don't know who's coming to the door next. So, there's a big difference between communication and transparency, I think.
Yep, good points. It does make a difference too when you have a good relationship with your support workers, because I know that when you do get good ones, God, that seems to make life a lot easier. And holding on to those support workers, it's a big difference when you lose them. Then you got to go through that whole process again. The frustration of it, the time it takes, training people. So, yeah, Raja?
Good service coordinators are a bit hard to get by these days because there's a shortage of good workers everywhere, and that includes service coordinators. The way we get over that is that we have good relationship with our support workers, and then they let us know who's coming and who's not coming, and or if they're sick or something, and then we basically coordinate the service almost. It just, we tried everything else, nothing else works. This is easier.
Yep. What about? I know this topic has already come up already, but platform providers, these newer online ones such as Higher Up and Mabel, and there's a whole heap of newer ones that are
disgusting.
Up and running.
They're absolutely disgusting.
Okay. Strong feedback from Raja. I
would not touch them with a bar soap.
Well, okay, fair enough. And you've obviously had some negative experiences.
We've had some horrible experiences with them.
I've had some good experiences. I have to say, but what I will acknowledge is it does require a bit of work. You've got to do a lot of good communication between yourself and the person that you connect with via these online platforms. That can be a bit time consuming.
Was a lot of them, because it's sort of like their own business, but a lot of them are very inexperienced in doing that, and
that's potentially an issue, and that's why I think you do need to. You're right. There are a lot of people.
We've only ever tried Mabel. And they were really hard to get through to get information from and to sort out invoices. our experience was not good. I'm glad yours was.
Yeah. Well, look, a bad experience is only around the corner because, as you know, over time, and I think again it comes down to the support worker that you manage to link in with. Often that's where the good and bad starts and ends. Dawn.
Thanks, Tony. One thing I've had good and bad experiences with the platforms. One thing I will acknowledge, though, if you go through an agency or a platform, is they do vet the people in terms of there's a fairly good guarantee that police checks working with children, or if they say they can do manual hoisting, that they've actually done the training. So I've had trouble connecting with support workers, but I've got some good ones. But I haven't had any trouble with the people who nobody's turned up who doesn't have the qualifications that they've got at that basic level.
Yeah.
So that does give me, and they're insured. Whereas I've had a variety of, I had a situation where one of my workers got hurt and she was a sole trader. And I said, you've got to make sure that you've got insurance for me, but also insurance for you.
Yeah.
And she thought that her income protection insurance was built in with her life insurance, not that she had to pay it separately. So even though I'd done the best I could to make sure that she was covered, she had absolutely no coverage for when she hurt her back through her own fault, right? So I will say that all gets taken care of if you use platforms or agencies.
Yeah. I guess you've raised a good point that with sole traders, maybe it's important that when hiring or before hiring, ensuring that they've all got the right insurance, so that public liability and public indemnity.
We asked for all that information before we put them on. It's a condition of employment. If they don't have that, we don't employ them.
No, I'm the same. I won't employ them. However, the other side, be aware that you haven't got super and you haven't got income protection or personal injury. And I deliberately don't go into too much information, but one of my workers has been seriously affected that she misunderstood. She thought her life insurance has a income protection, but that's not going to cover her until she's injured for like 18 months or something. So she was left completely exposed. So no, I do check, but there is this whole other area that they're not covered for.
Yeah. Jade, did you have a comment or something to add?
No, I thought about something and I was like, oh no, it's already been said. But Julio still has his hand up.
Julio?
Oh no, it must have been from previous time. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you. No,
what about people's thoughts on registered and unregistered providers? This kind of relates to the NDIS more so than any other areas. Any feedback or thoughts on registered and unregistered, whether it's an important issue for you? Gary?
I've used both registered and unregistered, and it was more, I've found that it's been, well, for me anyway, with these few instances, it's been more me having to show them how to do the process. And once we got over that, it was great, making sure that they had, it worked well. And I've
meaning you've helped them register.
Yeah, I've helped them learn how to do it, and then they've gone on to do it, and it's made it much better for them. So that's been a real positive.
Better for them in the sense that what they feel like they can get more work being a registered provider.
Yes, yeah, we had a sole trader here who had no idea. We got him to do one job for us. He did the outside of the house and the gutters and everything, and he didn't know how to do. So I jumped on and had a bit of a look around, got him some information, and off he went. That was quite good.
Awesome. You need to start advertising yourself to help with registering. So it's a bit of a side business.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if we've covered all of the issues, but any further thoughts, feedback, or experiences you wanna chat or raise, or any questions you might have?
Is oh, can I talk?
Go ahead.
Is spinal cord injuries doing anything about all this feedback to the NDIA? Like,
I am so glad you asked, Raja. So glad you asked. Yes, absolutely.
Because the other thing that you didn't mention today is price gouging. Okay.
Oh, well, look, raise it. Yes, now's a great topic. So thanks for raising it.
As soon as you say the word NDIS, everything goes up.
Yeah.
Medical supplies, wheelchairs, hoists, wheelchairs. Like, I bought a wheelchair. I self-funded that wheelchair because it's a manual wheelchair that's a little bit motorized, so that it was not on the NDIS list. Okay, and I needed it really fast, but there was a difference of $10,000 in the quote if I was an NDIS recipient or if I was a self-funding.
Look, great point, and this has come up in the media recently, and people talking about an NDIS tax almost. You mentioned you're on the NDIS, and then they want to increase the price. So yeah, very important point. Bob.
The original question is what's spinal cord injuries doing about that? Are you doing something with that?
Well, just on this whole service provider issue and all of these matters that are being raised, yes. The plan is we wanted to hold this forum and with Kelly's feedback as well, and we had a meeting with the CEO, and I know there's lots of anecdotal feedback, the negatives that people have experienced with service providers. So yes, we will be releasing a survey that the team have been working on for the last week or two. So Alex and Jade in the team have put together a bit of a survey. We're just finalising it, and we should have it by the end of the week, or if not, at the very latest, early next week. So we will send that out as well, because we would like to get more feedback, and definitely we're going to take this further with service providers themselves. We want to put together a bit of a round table, and that would include, I don't know if people have heard of National Disability Services. They are the peak for disability service providers. So we want to raise this issue with them as the peak, so that they're aware of these issues. But yes, we will definitely be doing some further work advocacy on this. And regarding price gouging, it is an issue that we have put in our submission to the NDIS review.
Because as you're hearing, they think it's going out of proportion, the NDIS costs, but that's not due to people with disabilities. That's due to the providers.
Yep. You're right. Okay, Bob, you've got your hand up.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can hear you. Yes, we can. Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, when I do Zoom meetings, I can use my camera microphone, and I had to work out how to get sound.
You're right.
My apologies. On price gouging, because I'm Veteran Affairs, but I've known for years that ever since NDIS started, prices skyrocketed. My first 3 wheelchairs I had to buy myself, and each wheelchair went up $4,000 to $5,000 higher than the previous one ever since NDIS come out. And my latest one, the price of the wheelchair actually doubled, and fortunately Veteran Affairs changed their rules and regulations and purchased that one. But because I've missed out on being able to comment on a lot of the issues, I'm currently debating with Department of Veteran Affairs because they don't recognise the increase in my wife's work bonus that the government increased from 300 to 450 for 12 months only. And we've got a letter to that effect where they only recognise the old 300 limit. So as a result, they've reduced the pension to us. And as far as carers go, well, my wife's my carer and she gets $1.44 an hour because she's got to be available to me 24/7, even when she's at work, which is ridiculous when you think carers under the NDIS system certainly receive a hell of a lot more than that. But another interesting thing, an NDIS client come to me the other day because I do disability advocacy access in Bathurst and help people with access. So NDIS isn't my area of expertise, but this chap come up and he told me that he's in NDIS and in Bathurst he's able to motor around the township himself, and he's well known. I know him well, see him quite often. But pressure has been put onto him that he must have a carer. And all that's aimed at, according to this person, is so as the business can raise more funds, because he certainly doesn't need a carer. He's very, he's got good capabilities as far as working his wheelchair goes. But then he told me, rather interestingly, that some of his mates have been told, no, you don't just need one carer. If you want to go into town, you need two. Well, don't tell me that's not price gouging.
Well, it's completely wrong. I mean, it's about choice and control. And if he feels he doesn't need a carer or support worker with him, well, he's completely entitled to motor around town, as you say, on his own and not be charged for services that he doesn't need. So I'd be, if I were him, I'd either be making a complaint or doing something and going back to that service provider, or even trying to get advocacy, whatever the case is, because that's not appropriate at all.
No, and he can speak for himself, which he has done. I won't use the terminology he used, but he was quite forceful, put it that way. But the other interesting thing with Veteran Affairs was when they, when my OT, I've got to go through an OT for everything from Veteran Affairs. And when we put in the submission for the wheelchair, it was knocked back. And it was explained to me, Bob, wait 1 week. The person I normally deal with's on holidays. She's back next Wednesday. Fair enough. The following Wednesday, I got a phone call and said, Bob, it's been approved. Well, that shouldn't happen. Just because I've got a super duper OT.
Yeah.
You know, there should be equal adherence to the rules and regulations across the board.
Absolutely. My suggestion, Bob, is I don't know. Have you ever used the older person's advocacy network that when these sorts of issues pop up, just to get some advocacy where they might have some experience in this and they can assist you with raising these issues? Because I mean, it shouldn't be happening.
No, I haven't used it.
It's a free service, so it's worth considering.
Yeah, I will take your advice on that. It's because I'm about to write a second letter to DVA to sort out the pension issues, because, you know, $60 a fortnight less is quite substantial. And I've also spoken to Andrew G, our federal MP for the area, and he's quite interested to pursue the case for me once I give him the details. So I'll certainly be going along that route as well. But thanks for your advice. I'll take that on board.
Yep. Who's next? Is it Dawn now?
Right, I'll be
Yeah.
quick.
I'll have to-
Just another area of price gouging that I've come up against is one of my workers works for another company, and
Yeah,
when
sorry,
they
no,
keep a tab on when clients' plans are close to ending, and they go, listen, you've got 20 hours you haven't used yet. You're going to lose that in your next plan if you don't use it. So we're going to invoice you for it. So you make sure that you use all of the plan, but they never provide the services. So they're invoicing on purpose. They're actually saying you need to do this.
That's fraud. If they're not if they're invoicing you
Complete
for
fraud.
services you're not receiving, that's just fraud.
That's straight fraud, but I'm actually, because it's third hand, I'm not quite sure how to deal with that, but I think that's not uncommon, especially if people don't understand their plans.
Yeah, people need to be cracking down on that because that's just outrageous behaviour.
Yeah, so, or I'm just working out how to communicate that to somebody, but just as an area.
Bob, I put that the link to the Older Persons Advocacy Network in the chat. So if you want to click that link, yeah.
No worries. Thanks very much.
Great.
Yeah, I was just going to say that even providers charging for transport is ridiculous. So I used to work as a local area coordinator before starting here, and I would often see the invoices where service providers would, like therapeutic, like OTs, would be charging like $30 for 3 kilometers of travel, because there's actually no set price on
Yeah.
how much therapeutic providers can be charging, yet there's a cap on how much support workers and support coordinators can be charging. So that's also, I guess, like an interesting little thing about price gouging and service
Yes.
providers.
Nurses,
price gouging as well.
OTs, physios, nurses, OTs, and physios are the worst.
Yeah, they they can be, yeah.
You know, one thing
Wayne,
got listening out
you got your
Wayne.
hand up.
Hi, it's Wayne. Is everyone, sorry, in relation to the
I'm happy afterwards.
poor quality advocacy, is everyone aware that right at the moment Standards Australia is drawing up minimum standards for advocacy? So now is your opportunity to get involved with that and to put your comments into Standards Australia.
Yeah, look, we were aware of that there was a move to actually try and standardise advocacy. But yeah, look, thanks for raising that, Wayne. I don't know where that is at, but we'll definitely follow that up as to.
Well, it's Standards Australia. They're very, very user friendly. So if anyone wants to go online, go to Standards Australia and put in your comments, give them your feedback. That's what they're looking for right now.
And is there a link? Is there a specific link with some info on that?
I'm sure there is, but it's the organisation is Standards Australia, and the peak body, Dana, would be able to put you onto it anyway. But I think that's important now because it is in the process of being done right at the moment. It'll be the minimum standard, and I think that is a start to this, to make sure that everyone who is giving advice knows what they're doing and it's consistent. Because I've noticed also, I had an incredible social worker when I had my spinal cord injury, and subsequently I had a social worker who was just tentative and foreign. I have to say that because she knew nothing and was just scared of doing anything or approaching any government agency. And it's chalk and cheese, and we do need to have some consistency. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks, Wayne. Okay, well, before we close, is there anything else people want to have a raise before we just wrap up? And yep. Okay, as mentioned before, further to our discussion, we have developed a survey. So we'll hopefully get that drafted by the end of the week, if not, very early next week. So we'd really appreciate if people want to provide some further information. But of course, we've recorded this session, so we will most definitely be using everyone's feedback for our advocacy. So really appreciate everyone being frank and giving us all the feedback. We will be following this up for sure, and we'll keep everyone posted. Just in terms of future forums, the next one on June 21 will be on emergency preparedness. So we will be rolling out some courses later this year on emergency preparedness. And the University of Sydney, through Michelle Villeneuve, has put together what they call PSEP, and that's person-centered emergency preparedness. So we'll have their team come and do a bit of a presentation on what you need to think about regarding emergency preparedness in your own life. Marg.
Just on that, thank you for organising that, because that's something that's been on my agenda. Just with that, will they also cover what the actual emergency services like fire brigade and stuff can do to evacuate somebody, or is it more just about what you can do yourself?
It's more about making preparations yourself, but it does include linking in with local emergency services, so making them known what your needs are. So rather than, at the time of the event happening, that you've passed on all of the necessary information, they've got your details, and you've put forward a bit of a plan on preparation. I've got that right, do I, Jade? Jade's done the training already.
Yeah, so look, the person-centered emergency preparedness is about building a person-centered plan that best suits your needs as a person living with a disability, as a person that is aging, as a person with a small baby. It is for anybody that is that feels vulnerable. And it could be, linking in with the RFS and finding out what the RFS can do to support you. It could be what the SCS could do to support you. So it could be, sitting down with a support person or doing it by yourself and calling them. I do know that the team at the University of Sydney are hoping to work with emergency services to provide more education about disability in an emergency, because I know as somebody that's been stuck in the bushfires before, it was absolutely horrendous not actually being able to get out with the support of somebody else. So ideally, they would like to provide that kind of training and support to the emergency services so that they can provide that support as required in that situation for people.
And
that sounds great.
And the training that we will be doing will connect in with local with local emergency services and local government. But at this stage, the three areas that we're looking to do this training is the Northern Rivers, the Hunter region, and the Wollongong Illawarra region. That's the plan at this stage. We did get some funding for that, but look, in the next few weeks, we'll send out more details about that. But yeah, just note that next forum will cover this topic.
Just on those areas, Tony, I also just want to say that these are kind of like our trial areas to see how we go. And then if hopefully it goes really well, we'll be trying to roll it out across the state, whether that's over a Teams meeting, or whether one of us is able to travel out and do a face-to-face. But we really want to make this kind of training and this information available to everyone that we can, because we do know that everywhere is impacted by all different kinds of natural disasters, including pandemics, floods, droughts, fires, everything. So yeah, look, these are just kind of like our trial areas that we've been funded to roll this out in, and we're hoping over time we can implement it across the state, either virtually in person. Is that right, Tony? I think it
Well,
is.
that
Yeah,
ideally that's
virtually.
what we
Yeah,
would like to do.
that's what working. Yeah, yeah.
The University of Sydney, through Michelle, their team, they are actually doing more work in this area, and I know they have recruited people with disability as well. So look, if there's any information that comes our way on this, we'll share it with the network too, so people do become aware of opportunities that come up. And I know local governments now are now doing emergency prepared. It's disability awareness of emergency preparedness.
Some councils even actually have a special officer for that now as well. Cannot remember off the top of my head which councils they are, but there are a couple of councils now that actually have a specific officer that works in that particular area. And there's also, if anyone is from the Shoalhaven area, there is a program going on there at the moment called Care to Prepare, run by Carers New South Wales, and that is to support anybody that is vulnerable to actually develop that plan as well. Just kind of putting that out there.
Okay. Well, on that note, that's a wrap for today. So just want to say thanks to everyone for all of the great feedback on this topic, and we really appreciate it. So hope to see you all at the next forum. Thanks.